Is the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu actually a trick to surprise Iran with a strike? Is evil something you can even negotiate with? How many dead people does it take before the world finally says enough is enough? And why is the most dangerous regime on earth still being treated like a misunderstood partner instead of what it really is? Shalom from Israel. I am Hanani Naftali with the latest update from the Middle East. This regime must fall, period. Not someday, not after one more meeting in Oman, not after one more handshake and a photo op. It must fall, because evil does not retire peacefully. And I want you guys to stay with me, because what's happening right now between Jerusalem and Washington could decide the future of the Middle East. The main news right now is that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is heading to Washington to meet President Trump. Officially, they're going to talk about negotiations. Unofficially, I believe they're going to talk about something much bigger, whether the West still knows the difference between good and evil. But before we continue, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It really helps me reach more people with the truth, especially in our era of censorship. So back to the meeting with Netanyahu and Trump. I think that there is a real chance that this very public meeting could serve another purpose. Not just shaping policy, but also shaping expectations. When the entire world is fixated on talks, regimes like Iran fall back into their comfort zone. Speeches, leaks, diplomatic drama, and that's exactly when they lower their guard. Look at the signals beneath the headlines. Israel is not calling this a peace effort. It's calling it a strategy shaping session. The United States has warned its own vessels to stay clear of Iranian waters in the Strait of Hormuz. The head of CENTCOM was already involved in the Oman Channel, and there is no follow-up meeting that's scheduled until after Netanyahu and Trump sit alone in Washington. Add to that the deliberate ambiguity coming from the White House. No declared red lines, no timetable. And you get uncertainty, not reassurance. So that's not how you prepare concessions or for negotiations. That's how you keep an enemy guessing. And if you wanted to mask real intentions and get the stage for a sudden strike, this is exactly how you would do it. Talk loudly, move quietly, let Tehran debate terms, while decisions are made elsewhere. Now, this is just a theory. Of course, I'm not saying that this is definitely a trick. I actually said in another report that I think the next strike will not be a surprise, because, I mean, you can't really surprise when you have an American armada in the Middle East, but I guess we will see. Look, for decades, the Islamic regime in Tehran, in Iran, has mastered one trick. Stole, smile, sign papers, and kill people while the ink dries. What we do know is that the regime is using the talks to buy time, and time becomes a weapon. And on top of that, a regime that murders its own people has zero credibility at any table. None. Not on nuclear deals, not on regional security, not on human rights, nothing. Listen, since late December, Iran has exploded with nationwide protests. Why? Because the economy collapsed, because corruption is everywhere, because young people see no future, because women are tired of being beaten for a strand of hair, and because the people are done. How did the regime respond exactly? Not with reform, not with dialogue, but with bullets. Credible reports estimate between 30,000 and over 36,000 people killed in just these few days of the protests. The internet was shut down, hospitals watched, doctors were arrested, wounded protesters were actually finished off in their beds at hospitals. That's not governance. That's slaughter. And I don't want to hear any other Western diplomats saying, we encourage restraint. If tens of thousands of deaths in Iran don't trigger clarity, then restraint has become cowardice. This didn't start now. Remember Mahsa Amini, remember women life freedom. Hundreds killed, thousands in prison, tortured. This wasn't an accident. It's the direct policy of the supreme leader of Iran, Ali Khamenei. And yet, the world keeps pretending that this regime is capable of good faith, negotiating with Tehran while its streets run red from blood is not diplomacy. It's moral surrender. And let's talk about the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. This is not a normal military. It's a mafia with missiles. It controls Iran's economy, crushes dissent at home, and spreads violence abroad. Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen. If there's blood on the floor in the Middle East, follow the IRGC. They arm Hezbollah, they train militias, they launch drones, they threaten shipping lanes. The Iranian regime says missile programs and proxies are off the negotiation table. Of course they are. I mean, a criminal never wants to discuss his favorite tools. And in our case, the ballistic missiles of the regime and the extensions that they have, be it the Houthis in Yemen or Hezbollah in Lebanon. By the way, we are already seeing satellite images that show works of restoration taking place in the missile sites that was struck by Israel and the United States. So clearly, they're not into making peace with anybody, okay? This is why Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, the son of the Shah, his words matter. He called this what it is, a genocide in the making. He said the playing field is not fair. Civilians with empty hands versus machine guns. And he's right. So now that the pressure increased and the regime is really on the verge of getting toppled, they basically say, okay, we'll dilute, that's what they actually offered, we'll dilute 60% enriched uranium if you lift all sanctions. Listen to that again. That's not compromise. That's extortion. 60% enrichment has no civilian purpose. None. Zero. It's a sprint away from a nuclear bomb. And while they promise peaceful intentions, they still chant about wiping Israel and America off the map, by the way. And also the Europeans. They have a problem with anybody that doesn't think like them. President Trump has said the consequences will be very steep if no deal is made. And good, but here's the key point. The goal cannot be just another deal. The goal must be an end to the threat. The Obama-era deal failed because it treated symptoms and ignored character. It poured money into a regime that used it for terror and repression. Any agreement that leaves this regime stronger is not a solution. It's a delay before disaster. Look, in the book of Esther, the Jewish people didn't survive by negotiating with Haman. They survived because evil was exposed and removed. History repeats itself when lessons are ignored. And this is why this moment matters. Netanyahu has warned about Iran for years. Not because it's popular, actually it wasn't. Not because it's easy, it wasn't easy, but because it's true. And now, with Trump in the White House, there is a real chance to set Iran free. And while the mainstream media is trying to show division between Israel and the United States, the reality is quite different. Ambassador Mike Huckabee said that there is no gaps between Israel and the US on Iran. And that matters. Because evil advances when good people argue over tone instead of truth. And I'm not calling for chaos. I'm not calling for endless war. I'm calling for reality-based leadership. Pressure that hurts the regime, not the people. Support for Iranian civil society. Isolation of the IRGC. Clear red lines, real ones. And yes, consequences, if those lines are crossed. It's something that we have to have, basically. Make peace through strength. And by the way, peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is the removal of a constant threat. So if we want to avoid World War III and endless wars, we actually need to deal with the problem, not with the symptoms. Missiles are symptoms. Threats are symptoms. The root lies in Tehran, and it's this regime. And here's something powerful that doesn't get enough attention. The Persian people and the Jewish people share deep biblical history. Cyrus the Great freed the Jewish people from Babylonian exile. Persia once stood on the side of life and restoration. The Islamic regime erased that legacy and replaced it with hatred. Iranian officials openly admit talks are about gauging seriousness, which in free translation means how much can we get away with. They refuse to stop enrichment. They refuse to discuss missiles. They refuse to discuss proxies. And still, meetings continue. The West keeps confusing patience with wisdom. They're not the same. This is not just about Iran. This is about whether the West still believes in moral clarity. Whether words like freedom, justice, and human dignity mean anything when they cost something. Netanyahu and Trump have an opportunity to lead. Not posture, not delay, but lead. Some regimes don't need incentives. They need an ending. And if you're still watching, do me a favor, subscribe to this channel. The Iranian people deserve freedom. Israel deserves security. And the world deserves leaders who know that evil doesn't negotiate itself out of existence. And remember, silence is never neutral. It always sides with the oppressor. And at the end of the day, if you want to find BDS and anti-Israel haters in real practical ways, so I invite you to check out theisraelstory.com, support local businesses, and show everybody where you stand. I will keep you posted with the news.